And I want to thank you for taking the time to join today's webinar on HR Tech Vision and Automating HR. It's a very special presentation for us here at RPI, as we have a special guest from Atlanta Public Schools, Ms. Skye Duckett. And with that, I give you Skye and Richard.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you so much. So I have been Chief Human Resources Officer at Atlanta Public Schools for about 5 months now. I've been with the district for 4 years. In total, I've been working in human resources and public education now for 15 years. Prior to that, I spent some time in healthcare. I did grow up kind of in the Gen X bubble where computers were first coming out as I was growing up. So that kind of drives my passion for marrying human resources and technology for so many years now. You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. And I gotta say, I love this quote. I think
thank you.
This so pertains to everything we do here at RPI.
It does. So when I think of automation, I'm reminded of something a very smart man once said, that automation makes an efficient operation more efficient. But Bill Gates also said that automation can make an inefficient operation even more inefficient. So framing our time today, I think it's good to remember that there are still some basic foundational operations and processes that must be in place before automation can be helpful. So it's not the be-all, end-all solution is the way we look at it. Pair that, though, also with the reminder that technology should be viewed as a tool to help people get better and not necessarily a way to work around the people in an organization or get rid of the people in an organization. So keeping these two beliefs in mind, today we'll start with the case for automation, then we'll preview some high-impact levers, share our best practices and lessons learned. If you're not in the public sector, don't worry. There should be plenty of relevancy to other industries as we go along, and Richard will be able to provide some of that context as well. So to share a little about our local context and the reason why automation was so important to us in Atlanta. Atlanta Public Schools is an education organization with over 6,000 employees. If you count part-time, it runs over 7,000 employees. Our 92 work sites are schools that are spread through the metro Atlanta area. The majority of our employees, about 4,000 of them, are teachers, of which we hire about 400 plus teachers a year. Total, we hire around 1,000 employees a year. We are located in the capital of Georgia. We're bordered on all sides, though, by larger county school systems. We also have 17 public charters in our portfolio, which is a lot compared to most school systems, so it provides a unique local context. The surrounding districts plus our charter schools create a good deal of competition for talent in the area. So that's kind of the situation that we're faced with in our local context. So drive that to how that relates to our talent management strategy. Coming in with a new superintendent, we were tasked with turning around an entire school district. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the story of Atlanta Public Schools. We relied on these 4 pillars of our strategic plan that were outlined by our Board of Education. So in our efforts to carry out their mission and vision, we realized a couple of things. 1, that this was going to be a lot of work, and 2, that we weren't getting any more people in our current budget climate. So that meant we had to look for ways to do more with less. That probably sounds familiar to a lot of you, and get more focused on our priorities so that we're doing our part to improve student outcomes. So in education, in our industry, our bottom line is student success, which is measured in many ways. The most common is probably graduation rates, and then how ready a student is for college or career after they leave our organization. So there are 5 key ways that we leverage technology in those improvement efforts to improve student outcomes. The first, and one I'm honestly pretty passionate about, is around application intake and screening. I spent a lot of time early on in Atlanta visiting with and listening to our hiring managers. And in our organization, hiring managers are mostly school principals. One principal told me that the online application system was so complicated that they didn't even use it to look for their candidates. They said that they just interviewed whoever emailed them their resume or showed up at their school. And that was really scary because what's more important than putting a really qualified person in front of students? And so we realized early on that that was one of the most impactful things we could do, is to improve the quality of the people that were coming in the beginning through our applicant tracking system. So they were having to spend several days in this old clunky system on interviews because it took so many rounds to find good candidates. So we knew we had to improve their technology solutions for screening candidates. We started by allowing our hiring managers to pick a new online application system. We thought buy-in was really important. So as an organization, we narrowed their options down to 3, and then we kind of let go and trusted and gave our hiring managers the ability to demo those 3 systems and choose the one that they liked best. So because they chose it, this time they had a lot of buy-in into using it instead of refusing to use it. We did end up with an educational software as a solution for our applicant tracking system, and so many of these things that we implemented will work in any applicant tracking system, including M4 talent acquisition. But it was really important to us when we did select that new vendor that we let the system do most of the candidate screening for us, because we have a really small HR department. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. So our applicant tracking system stages candidates through the hiring process, which the first stage of that is checking a candidate's background, seeing if they answered any of those arrest questions wrong. It'll automatically stage them into a section where we can go and review them instead of passing them along. It does the same thing to check and see if they've worked for us before and if they're eligible to come back and work for us again. The system handles all of that logic. Then it passes candidates along to an online screening assessment. In our industry, we use Gallup Teacher Insight. Most industries have some sort of a screening assessment. Ours takes about 30 to 45 minutes. And the score comes back into the system, and if it's a high enough score, the system passes the candidate along for us, again, it does the work, to a video job interview. So it sends a link to a candidate, they get it in their email box that says, congratulations, you've been asked to interview with Atlanta Public Schools. And then they're able to take that interview on their own time, and that interview comes back into our online application system, where then we have a team of 24 of our top teachers from around the school district that will watch and rate those interviews, and the highest scoring interviews are then put in front of our hiring managers as the pool they should start with. So now instead of saying, hiring manager, start here with 200 resumes, we're able to present to them the top 7% of the candidate pool within about a 1 to 2 week time period. And keep in mind, we start out with about 3,000 applications. So we're really excited about our work to improve candidate quality, letting the system do most of the work. Some early results of this work have been an increase in hiring manager satisfaction with the applicant pools, as well as the efficiency of the hiring process. Part of that's been due to our use of video job interviewing, which has allowed us to interview over 800 candidates over the past 3 months without spending valuable work time to do it. So it's really letting us focus on our work time on things that are most important. So moving on to the second and very important initiative was our substitute teacher program. This is something that we hear a lot about if it's not working well, but we don't hear much about it if it is working well, probably similar to any system you all use. It's also one of the easiest areas to improve, and it's often overlooked. In other industries, there are fill-in employees when someone is absent, so you can, as I talk, you can replace substitute teacher with substitute nurse or whatever your situation may be. But we've moved past the days when I first started when teachers would call in when they wanted to be absent and leave a message on a voice answering machine. And then we had someone who would come in the morning at 4 a.m. and listen to all the voice messages and start making phone calls on one telephone out to all of the substitute teachers to try to get them to come in and fill in. And so we've moved past those now, and part of our initiative was to leverage the substitute management system so that we could handle more call-ins at a time and make it easier for a teacher to call in. So now they're able to put in their absence on their mobile phone. They can call a 1-800 number that's open 24/7. They can use their computer to put in their absence, and then the system, no matter what time of day, automatically starts matching substitute employees to the absences that we have. So that was very helpful, having an automated call center and also having the system provide daily reports to our school sites that tell them first thing in the morning who's going to be absent and who's filling in for them, so that when they get to work, they can just very quickly see that, know it's been handled, and move on to their core business of education or whatever is at hand that day, instead of worrying so much about scheduling and about fill-in employees. In implementing our substitute management system, it was very important to us that it was easy to manage because it's not within our GHR portfolio. So we did interface it directly with GHR. So when we hire a new employee in GHR, they're automatically set up in the substitute management system. And likewise, when we hire a new substitute in GHR, they're automatically set up in the substitute system so that they can be called for jobs. That's really helped us be able to ensure that they get right to work. Now when we hire them in GHR, say on a Monday, they could be at work at a school on a Tuesday. Whereas before it required a person to key their information into something like a substitute management system, and it could take 1 to 2 weeks from the time they were hired to the time they were in the system. It's sad, I know. So here, this may sound like something that's not related to core business, but it really is. And prior to this automation, we were only able to provide a substitute 88% of the time when a teacher was absent. This means 12% of the time a class full of kids did not have a teacher. So you can just imagine over time how much that piles up and could actually impact their educational career. So that was pretty unacceptable to us. Now we're able to provide a substitute 98% of the time. And in the educational community, there's a research-based link between students having a qualified substitute when their teacher's absent and their success in school. So you can see we've observed the same findings in our district, where our high school graduation rates have been increasing over time compared to our substitute fill rates, which have also been increasing over time. So that's pretty positive news for us. Third is speaking of our mission to build trust and collaboration in our organization. Not being able to locate personnel files when somebody asks you for one, or respond to a request for information, Open Records Act, in a timely fashion wasn't helping us build trust in the organization. Richard also knows we were faced with some data challenges and not being able to provide accurate data and electronic reports when requested. So first step here was going paperless. So we converted all of our files and human resources into electronic format, and we started intaking all of our new hires electronically from the point of onboarding to hire. And then there's also those HR processes that are at the core of an organization that, if done really well, can help retain employees and be a good retention initiative. I relate this to, like, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you have the base level of needs that must be met. So we really focused on taking care of employees' basic needs, like their payroll, their address changes, signing documents that we're issuing and they're signing and returning, so that those things became easier for them so they could focus more on their core job, whatever that may be. So making those transactional processes paperless was pretty important to us, and was also important to create some efficiencies for our HR department. So I think that's where you all really helped us out with our HR actions and making sure everything coming in the beginning was electronic. Do you want to talk a little more about those configurations?
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept here is that there are a lot of paper, a lot of paper forms that really get internally generated, right? We're talking about personnel action, change of address, basic stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the old model is that when somebody wants to initiate a change, they'll fill out a form, they'll go gather approvals on that form, and send the form to some central processing department that keys everything in, right? And when we transition over to a full electronic form space, the secret really is to enable the entire staff to be able to easily initiate their transaction online. So they need easy to use forms, that they need to be effective in order to make changes, and those forms need to be accessible to every single employee. So available over the web and in such a way that's easy for people to get to. We used tools within Global HR to help make this go smoother. So we used Configuration Console to create action request forms that were very clear, concise, easy to fill out, made a lot of sense. And we use Infor Process Automation to systematize an approval hierarchy, because once you get the data into the system, the next step is getting it to the right people who need to approve it and then act upon it. So our challenge there, of course, was to systematize a set of business policy or rules and sync that up with an HR organizational chart. So the right people are seeing the right transactions, and there's not issues with getting things approved, right? We have visibility and know where transactions are moving, who needs to see them, and they make sense and they're accurate and they conform to our approval policy.
Right, because we had a pretty complicated approval structure, and you were able to help with that.
Right, and when things are complex and incorrect and difficult to use, people need to get their jobs done, right? So they're going to work against the system or around the system, and we just need to align the system with what the actual business processes and policies were in place.
Right. I thought it was also very helpful the way that once we did have a good approval path and an electronic hiring actions that our HR staff could do, we were still losing a little bit of visibility because we have 5 different people data entry. So sometimes we were encountering duplicates. Do you want to explain how you helped us with the duplicates?
Yeah. So what this comes down to is, we're a business at APS is very cyclical. There's a very busy period over the summer, as all of our school systems watching today are familiar with.
Yes, we're in the heat of it now.
Yes. So I'm so glad they let you out. So there's a lot of transactions that will queue up, right? You will schedule maybe a termination to happen at the end of the year, or a change of position to happen at the end of the year. And this is a dynamic landscape where people change their minds or get new opportunities. And you might run into a situation where you've got somebody terminating who then is going to become a rehire or a change of position. You need to start backing stuff out or changing what's going on. So we've set up alerts so that way at the point of entry, at the point that you're initiating a transaction, you get some visibility into, wait, what else is going on with this employee that might impact what we're trying to do now? And how do we change that pending transaction to really line everything up?
Yeah, and that last piece has been one of the most helpful things to our HR staff, and they really love that. I think we've had that for a month or 2 now, the duplicate notification. So this is the first year that we've really been able to measure the results of our work on going paperless, and we've realized more gains in this area than many others, with a 23 percentage point increase in hiring manager satisfaction with the efficiency of our HR technology over the past 3 years. So we survey them, and we ask them every year for the past 3 years, so you can kind of see where it used to be like that beige, orangish color, and now we're all the way in the blue. So that's pretty important that we're making them happier with their use of HR technology. But also important is that we've seen the engagement levels of our HR staff increase over that same time period as well. So they're becoming a little happier in their jobs as we are fixing some of these things for them. Kind of along the same thought process of going paperless is, fourth, in a competitive market, you can lose a candidate after the job offer if you don't secure them quickly. I'm sure that's true of any industry. The onboarding experience itself can help keep a new employee, or it can also help make them quit. So it's a great opportunity to create the culture of engagement that you want in the organization. So to help with this, we launched a branded onboarding app last summer. It reflects our innovative culture, and it also manages the new hire onboarding schedule so that they know their next steps and we don't lose them in the process. In the app, they're also able to access all of their new hire resources like payroll, benefits in their employee handbook. So now we're able to hire the vast majority of our employees within 3 days of the manager making the hiring request, and we're able to onboard them within a week. We also had to overcome a lot of barriers to our traditional IT processes to ensure that the basic new hire setup for things like Active Directory and email was seamless, as well as issuing laptops to new hires. Most of our employees that work in schools receive a laptop upon hire. So again, we leveraged GHR to automate Active Directory accounts so that when our HR staff entered a hire action into GHR, Active Directory was then looking for that every day and would have their email account ready for them, even if they came into onboarding the day after we entered the hire. Their email account and their laptop was ready for them. And why that is so important to us is because people were complaining about it a lot when we were hiring them. I'd see them at new employee orientation in late July or August, and my most common complaint at orientation was, I don't have my laptop yet, I don't have my email yet, I can't get into the systems I need to do my job. So that has been very impactful for us. This is just a screenshot of what our mobile app looks like to new hires with icons for their schedules and their employee benefit providers. We've also been able to generate some revenue to support our orientation program by offering sponsors paid advertisements within the app. So now we can feed people when they come into orientation. So that, we had to get we have to get creative in education. Lastly, we really struggled to set up a data structure to evaluate the effectiveness of our talent strategy and provide reliable metrics for our hiring managers. We just recently completed a project to pool data from 5 different systems, including GHR, our performance appraisals, applicant tracking, student achievement data, and our exit surveys to create a talent data warehouse. That was the longest part of the project. Then the dashboards were easy once we got everything kind of under one roof, so to speak. Our hiring managers and their area supervisors now use these talent dashboards in their biannual talent reviews to help grow and develop our teacher leaders. So here's part of the talent dashboard that our hiring managers have access to. It's in Tableau, and here they can see 3-year trends in their exit survey data, their teacher demographics, and their retention and their performance appraisals. This dashboard was built using Amazon Web Services, I think Redshift, is that the right word? You're getting me into technology. And the data is uploaded every night, and we use that to generate these Tableau dashboards and publish it for multiple business users to view the data. This is a sample 9-box matrix that our hiring managers use to plot their employees on the axis of performance across the bottom and potential from the bottom moving up. And then they use the ratings on this 9-box matrix to then create individual career development plans based on their placement. So our long-term plan here is to utilize succession management in GHR to then track where employees are moving in their careers, and if the type of development we're providing them is resulting in higher performance, or if they're achieving their career goals. So as a result of our increased focus on using data for talent-related decisions, we've established key metrics that can be evaluated each year to determine our progress towards our strategic plan. So through our data, we've also learned that we're keeping more of our high performers and we're keeping less of our low performers, which a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it's kind of important that you're doing that as well. And also, through our use of Gallup's Q12 engagement survey, we also know that our employees are becoming more engaged at work, which lends itself to higher retention. And as Richard can attest from, you've kind of seen the beginning of our data and where we're at with it now, just even being able to have reliable data to use has been an amazing benefit of having Global HR as our clean and core system of record.
Yeah.
So for us, the high impact levers that we use to get to our strategic goals were reducing screening time, working on our substitute fill rate, going paperless, automating that onboarding process, and providing useful data. But there are some specific strategies that I feel like allowed us to get the best results possible. Our superintendent says this one all the time: make the plan, work the plan. And we take it seriously. To the earlier point from Bill Gates about efficiency, for each automation goal we had, there were some underlying structures and processes that we had to get right first. So we worked with our colleagues and our customers to develop clear goals, sequence those goals, and then map out the technology pathway that would get us there. Do you want to explain a little more about your work in that?
Yeah, so it all started with APS collecting feedback from staff, right, on what are the business challenges, what are the opportunities to systematize or add application functionality to improve the way that work is done. We met together and helped take all of that feedback and frame it in terms of projects that we could accomplish with discrete objectives and goals. And once we figured out a list of projects or streams of work that we could go down to start meeting some of these objectives, then basically we just needed to map that out on a project plan and timeline, taking a look at priorities and dependencies between these different areas of work, as well as how do they line up to our overall enterprise application movement with, you had a Chronos upgrade sort of ongoing throughout this time. And then of course we had different Infor upgrades that we wanted to get put in.
Right. So I think the most important takeaway from that was that HR just didn't go away in a closet and say, this is everything we're going to change in our system, nor did just HR and technology go away in a closet and plan and then say, organization, this is what we were going to do. I think you all, when we had individuals at the table and we were doing testing, we had HR, we had finance, we had IT, we even pulled in some of the individuals from schools who engage with our systems and even our charter schools. And so I think that might have been one of the most comprehensive collaborations you all have facilitated, but I think it really worked out really well for us in the end. We also tried to not bite off more than we could chew, which is always a challenge when you're dealing with needing to make improvements. We identified skill sets in our full-time resources early on, which was not easy or painless. And then we brought on like college interns or contractors through our IT department for more skilled or time-intensive roles. We also had a lot of good feedback from our approach with our HR, IT, and finance staff. The leaders of these three departments gave unified, clear goals to the individuals who were working on the project, but then let the cross-functional working groups hash out the strategy and the options. So this made them much more invested in the outcomes than they would have been if we just dictated every step of the way from a leadership perspective. So we just kind of identified the outcomes or said this is the vision we're trying to achieve, and then let the working teams kind of work and develop how they were going to get there. You were involved with some of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was happy to be invited to participate with these teams because, of course, they're really keyed in to the overall mission at APS. And from an HR perspective, it's attract, retain, and develop the best educators in the Atlanta area. That's your domain expertise, and your organization can move forward with project work because you sort of know what your goals are. Where we come in, of course, is with software expertise. And APS has made a decision to engage with strategic partners for various systems. Infor expertise is it's tough to be an expert in everything, and when we work together, we can get a lot accomplished, sort of marrying that software domain expertise with understanding and goals of your business.
Right. I feel like that's certainly given us the lift we needed in the area of resources. It's also really easy when you're spending a lot of time working on technology and data to get really bogged down in the details. We've had a lot of success with our process because of buy-in from our hiring managers and from the HR staff who's using the system every day. They are very much part of our focus groups to select vendors, design system setups, test the systems. With most of our work, we also started with pilots. The pilot group of hiring managers would then get so excited with whatever we were piloting, like video job interviews or performance appraisals, that then the rest of the hiring managers were practically begging for the services, and so that made a rollout. Instead of a rollout, it became more like a giving you what you asked for type situation. So we were very intentional about creating that from type of buy-in from the very beginning. So I would summarize our best practices as making and working a plan, understanding your key resources, and not forgetting the people that make the technology work and bringing them along the way. Unfortunately, but also fortunately, we also learned a few lessons along the way that may be worth passing along, and we'll actually try to summarize them because we could probably go on and on. But the first, I would kind of call that the knowledge transfer area. In our first upgrade of our ERP system, which we did with the vendor, there was not much knowledge transfer. So after their implementation staff left, we were at a disadvantage. So then when we undertook our next wave of automation and fixes and really working to fine tune the system, we ensured that we selected a vendor that would provide knowledge transfer for our staff.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've also helped build up a documentation library that APS can use as a reference to help maintain and upgrade the system going forward. It's so important to have this level of documentation behind, say, custom development that's been done, to have technical documentation, to have functional configuration reference guides, and then I think most importantly, test scripts, right? So now you're empowered to rapidly adopt software updates because you have a formalized process for executing a test plan and scripts to run to ensure that a new system update is ready to roll out to production.
Yeah, I felt like that was really important. Also, kind of a lesson learned was around third-party systems. We have a lot of those, you know that. A kind of a cautionary tale is we kind of started out trying to make all of our third-party systems work and just build a lot of interfaces between them and GHR and between each other. So we really did a transition to adopting a strategy of trying to put as much as possible into GHR and starting to roll off some of those third-party systems. And so I think starting with that strategy from the beginning would have been helpful. And then you kind of touched on documenting everything because sometimes we were making change so rapidly within the systems that we didn't do a deep enough level of documentation so that if the people that were involved in that change won the lottery and weren't here the next day, then we would be able to pick up and keep moving. So that's kind of a lesson learned. Then also with data quality, we needed guardrails and configurations within the HR system to reduce data entry errors by HR staff. We realized the importance pretty quickly of using common data fields across systems and setting systems up with that in mind from the start. And then it's also important to assess the readiness of the organization. Technology transformation wouldn't be fully realized without the support of the head of the organization, the CEO, the superintendent, your C-level leaders, and hiring managers. So getting that organizational readiness in place first would be a good piece of advice. And for us, we had a lot of leadership turnover by the time we started this project with one team in 2014 and then ended it, it's never ending, but and then fast forward to where we are now. So trying to keep as much of that high level buy-in as possible. And then lastly, I would say to keep in mind that automation still requires people. So to consider how automation may affect people's jobs before moving it too far along. There's, emotional changes that people go through. There's also skill sets that need to be built up along the way. And so it's not a...
Yeah.
It just still requires people.
As Elon Musk recently tweeted, people are underrated as far as the chain of production goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we learned this particularly when we went to automate state reporting of teacher qualifications. This at first glance seemed like a straightforward interface, right?
They all do.
They all do. Right. We have this data sort of in a couple of different systems. We just need to bring it together, format it in the way that the state needs to receive it in their file, and transmit it up to their website. When we dug in to say, well, how does this work today? What we found is actually every reporting cycle included a data cleansing and sort of cleanup work, right? So it's you start pulling the data from the various systems, putting it together in Excel, but then at that point you pour over every row and go back and make corrections and whatnot. So really to automate this process, it was a shift in doing a yearly or quarterly sort of batch of data cleansing more to a continuous data maintenance model, at which point you have the data clean in the system all the time, and then it's just a matter of pulling it out when it needs to be reported.
That was a really important shift for us. And so our lessons learned, I would say, would be cautions about knowledge transfer, how you view your third-party systems, the importance of documentation, data quality, organizational readiness, and then staffing within the departments that are using the automations and being cognizant of that. Did you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that covers it.
All right. Do we have any questions, team?
We do.
Richard gets all of them.
All right, there we go.
Your questions, please.
This is kind of a technical question. No, it's not. Was APS on S3 prior to the go live, and is there accounting now on S3 or FSM 11? How long did the implementation of GHR take from kickoff to go live of GHR?
Yeah, so we were on Lawson S3 prior to GHR in the cloud.
Yeah, over 15 years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the public school system is has been a Lawson customer for a long time, longer than GHR has been around.
Right, and finance is still there. Do you want to explain the plans?
Yeah,
getting
sure.
that in the cloud?
Yeah, exactly. So Global HR was implemented starting in the cloud. So they had a hybrid solution in place where transition from on-premise HR fully integrated 3-suite solution to moving the HR system of the record up to the cloud, and of course interfacing back and forth. That's just the first step in the overall plan, which is to move fully to an Infor Cloud Suite-based solution. So as of right now, my team is working on data migrations and converting over customizations, reports, and what have you to execute a cloud migration from the on-premise AIX Oracle architecture and sort of get everything all up in one place. What does that mean to you is that you're going to have one integrated solution all in one place, and network or compatibility issues will be sort of taken out of the equation, and we'll be a lot more flexible in terms of building out and developing that overall comprehensive solution.
So what he said on the finance question, and then I think there was also a question on global HR and how long that implementation took. So so I remember I arrived in July of 2014. The ink was signed on the upgrade contract in November 2014. Then we started, a significant amount of planning work, testing, and we were live in December 2015. So we went from November 2014 to go live in December 2015. So it was about a year, but we're in 2018 still on, upgrading to the latest version and testing out more of we're still working in GHR on a regular basis.
That 1 year project was just core HR, essentially. And Global HR has a lot of additional modules that are on your roadmap, so you're still building out new functionality, and on the long-term roadmap is to take more advantage of talent management systems once the sort of the base HR is all brought up to version 11.
Yes, we're excited.
And I'll add to that, if you'd like more details, or we'd be more than happy to facilitate a deeper discussion and questions, just shoot us a note at questions@rpic.com, and we'll make that happen.
All right, I want to thank Ms. Skye Duckett. Wonderful presentation. Thank you, Richard, for joining us. Thank you all for attending. We hope you will join us next time.